Oink oink baby, this is Pig Daddy Cool, the Boar, and you are listening to Wrestling Cheers.
Taking your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to go where you can see that troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
And welcome back to Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name, especially when you're the gender-neutral monarch of the mountain. This is Wrestling Cheers. We like to talk about things going on Northeast Ohio independent wrestling scene. We preview shows, we review shows, and sometimes we even have interviews along the way. This is an interview with the Boar. I am your host, Justin Summers, and Wrestling Cheers is brought to you by Midwest Territory. Please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listen to this fine podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, or Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, and Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com. And like I said, this is an interview with the Boar, and we have the Boar on the line. Boar, how's it going this evening?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah, just coming down from a wrestling-filled weekend. Had a Thursday, then a Saturday shot. So getting a little up there in age. So when I get two bookings in a week, it takes me an extra day or two to unwind. But I'm good, man. How you doing?
A Thursday show? Where was that at?
That was at for Voltage, and that was out in they run like West Virginia, PA, Maryland, kind of like where all three states kind of connect.
Okay.
So they'll bounce around from like state to state, but it's all in the same like 90-minute area.
Okay. Then what was Saturday?
Saturday, that was Flying V, and that will be eventually streaming on IWTV.
I think for me, it's like Thursday shows are just so rare, but then I forget like AIW runs those Winchester shows.
Yeah, I think more promotions are starting to run Thursday shows. Mm-hmm. I think the key is like having a tight show, because Thursday's a new Friday. So I think if you can get a decent start time and you can have a tight card and you can get people in and out in under 2.5 hours, I think a lot more places are starting to run on Thursdays.
It's probably easier. I would guess easier to book like some talent because Thursdays are fairly open for people. Yeah.
It's an open night. A lot of wrestlers have jobs where maybe they don't have to work on Fridays, or if they do, it's earlier so they can be free for Friday and the rest of the weekend. And a lot of buildings just have better availability too during the week. So if you can grab a Thursday night and not have to compete with weekend bookings, you can get pretty good deals on buildings, I think.
So you've had a pretty good February so far. Not only did you finally win the gender neutral Monarch of At Odds with Wrestling, but the Chiefs won the fucking Super Bowl again.
It's been a pretty good month for old Pig Daddy. Yeah, Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Sorry about it. Get used to it. Yeah, feeling pretty good. And then, finally getting the big win for the gender neutral At Odds Monarch of the Mountain. It's been 4 years in the making, I think. So it was about time. So I think that's like the first big prestigious win in my career. So that's pretty cool.
I really wanted Broner to do something. That's why I picked him. Actually, I will admit, a part of me wanted to just back you. Just be like, no, like just Boar's going to be our pick. But I was like, no, I don't know if they'll let me do that. So, that's why I went Broner. Then I got screwed over because they did the whole thing of getting people from the Major Wrestling Figure podcast group to vote for Swoggle. And I think some of them went down the ballot and go, oh, I know Cheeseburger. I'm voting for him.
Sure.
Just like they were like, oh, I know CPA. I'm voting for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you notice how they both lost in the next round because not as many people were voting for him.
Yeah, they lost that little bit of a bump But everything worked out the way it was supposed to work out, and yeah, Pig Daddy's the new monarch of the mountain.
I was afraid a little bit that Ziggy was going to be the one to beat you, and I was like watching it like all week. Like I had to check in and be like, "Sport's still winning." Like I love Ziggy, but I'm like at this point, I'm like, if Boar fucking makes it to the finals and loses, like I'm gonna be pissed.
And how could I be mad at Ziggy? Ziggy's so cool. I could never be mad about it. But I was keeping an eye on the voting, and I saw it was up by like 55%. And I was like, maybe I will stop promoting this, so like I'm not bringing it to people's attention and don't give them the option to select Ziggy over me. So that was my strategy in the last 2 days, which is kind of like, okay, I'm in the lead. Let me lay low and just kind of burn out the clock. And I think my strategy worked.
Yeah, I think with that opening round with Broner and Cheeseburger, like literally, I was watching it tick down because I think I was off that day of work. I think I called off that day, and I'm just watching it go down, and all of a sudden it's like I'm ahead. No, I'm not ahead. I should say Cheeseburger's winning. Now we're tied. Cheeseburger's winning, and then like I actually created another account to try to pull up by one, and it didn't even like help because freaking Broner still lost by like 2 or 3. It was a small number, but literally down to the wire.
Yeah, that was a tough first round matchup. That was that one. You know, you'd like to see that one take place a little bit later, but that was a super high quality opening round matchup between those two.
What I'm hoping they do next year or next installment, because it technically should be this year. I want to see them have like a second chance tournament where you take only people that qualified are people that didn't win.
That's a good hook. I like that.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of people that I kind of wanted to put in, like whether it was this year or last year, and I was like, oh no, they were in it. Oh no, they were in it. And it's like, damn. Or even like somebody, if someone had like a gimmick change, like you obviously still couldn't use them or have a name change. And it's like, just let's come like bring back some people. But
it's a good idea for Adam if you're listening. You know, maybe take that and boost it. I think that's a pretty good idea because there's been a lot of talent included throughout the 4-year tournament.
How did it feel with the Chiefs winning another Super Bowl?
It felt good. I felt like so I'm not just like a bandwagoner. I've been a Kansas City Chiefs fan since like 1995, 96, somewhere around there. Okay. Like my first Chiefs memory is us losing, I believe, in the divisional round to the Colts. So it's been a lot of like we're always for the most part a good team but never a great team.
Yeah.
So now that we have the dude, right? Like we have 1-5. We've got Pat Mahomes. We've got the guy that is just always going to find a way to pull it out. Now it's become like a legacy thing where it's like I don't need to wait. Mm-hmm. Like, he's the greatest of all time. Now he's not the best winner of all time. But it's when it comes to like how the position is played, the stats that he's already put up, the ability he's already shown, the natural instinct that he has that just can't be taught, his ability to learn from his mistakes, and just being clutch and getting it done. You know, there's a stat out there with the Kansas City Chiefs under Mahomes where throughout all their games played, you could spot the opponent 10 points, and every year the Chiefs would be a wild card team still. Like, wow. That's how good he is. So it's become like a legacy thing already where it was like, okay, because society is so obsessed with counting rings, we can't go like 1-2 in a Super Bowl. Like we have to get this one. Mm-hmm. And now that like this one has been acquired, the next goal is, okay, got to go back to back. So even though this one felt really good, it felt like a season really of kind of slaying a lot of demons. It was Pat learning how to, take what's in front of him. Don't always go looking for the deep shot, even though he is still going to look down the field for the big play. Take what's in front of you, run the ball when we need to run the ball, take the 4 to 6 yard completion, and really be able to do that all year. And then the defense finally stepping up as the season went on. So yeah, it just felt like a culmination of like, okay, all the things that haunted us in the past, whether it was the defense, whether it was not being patient with taking the big shot, whether it was not taking what's in front of us. And also the teams being able to finally beat the Bengals and correcting that mistake from last year where Pat had just a collapse in the second half. And then the continual, I'd say disrespect, but doubting the Chiefs against great offense or against great defenses. Earlier in the season when we played the 49ers, everybody thought the 49ers were going to pull it out. And the Chiefs hung 42 points. I think that was where Jimmy G stepped out of the end zone and put 2 up on the board himself. But so yeah, I think the Chiefs hung up 42 points of offense against the number 1 defense at that time, and they came out and they hung up 38 on the current best defense in football. So it felt really good. We slayed a lot of demons, and now we need to look forward to next season and run it back, because that's going to be a big box to check on the legacy checkboard for Pat Mahomes.
I think even just winning 2 Super Bowls is quite the accomplishment in the NFL. I mean, look at, some of the quarterbacks that have only won 2, or even just ones that only won 1. Like, I always thought like one of the best quarterbacks going, and I swore early on he was going to win a lot more than he actually did, was Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
But he only managed to make it to 1 Super Bowl. Not even just win. He only managed to make 1. And I always say, too, partially being a Bears fan as well, is the fact that if Jay Cutler didn't get knocked out of that NFC Championship game, I think it might have been possible the Bears could have won. Because like that, up until that point, that game was very close. I mean, if I'm correct, it was a low scoring game. And it was Todd Collins' interception that put the Packers in the lead. And like, as a quarterback, I remember that year with him playing, he went in after Cutler against the Giants, and he was god awful. And then they put in the 3rd string, which was it Caleb Haney?
Sounds right.
There's 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Haney, and there's another one where they're like the one that played for Miami that sounds similar in my head at least, but nonetheless, like, that was, I almost said Kyle Orton. No, Kyle Orton was Rex Grossman years. But yeah, if Cutler would have not got that concussion, like, I'm not saying the Bears could have made it to the Super Bowl.
They could have won that game though.
Yeah, but they could have. It was definitely, it was so close. But like, once he got knocked out, I'm like, it's over. Like, I just accepted it at that point. But
yeah, I remember watching that game and being like, shoot, like this was probably the shot. And it didn't work out, sadly.
Yeah, was that the Chiefs were in the playoffs that year, right?
If we were, we got eliminated in the first round. That's what we always did.
Yeah, because one of those years, as crazy a story as this is, it may have been the year they lost to the Ravens, I think. My ex, her mom would like randomly pick teams, and like she had like a pretty good record of like them being successful. And at the beginning of that year, she was like, "Oh, the Chiefs are gonna be the team that I picked this year." And it's like, okay, whatever. And I remember when they made it to the playoffs, it's like, what the hell? Nobody's seen this coming.
Yeah, because that was, I think that would have been coming out of the Herm Edwards years, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, we were. Those were definitely some down years.
So, with you being a Chiefs fan, like, how does that make it with the area that you live in?
Everybody here seems to have a healthy respect for the Chiefs. And even the shows I've been on afterwards with a lot of wrestlers who are also Eagles fans, everybody understood what it was, man. Everybody understood that we just got that dude. Yeah. I think it helps a little bit that Philly is kind of a perpetual loser. Like, even though they'll go as far as they can to break your heart. And yeah, the Super Bowl is kind of another example of that. So I've experienced, I haven't had like any hate. It's just kind of more like, of course you guys won. Like, even when we're up by 10 and it seems like we're going to win, of course you guys find a way to win. Even the holding call, there's been more like national media conversation about that than I've seen with like Eagles fans having a complaint about it. Seems like everybody just agrees, like, yeah, you held them and you wish it wasn't called. But at the same time, like, being a Chiefs fan, well, if that's not called, he's holding them from behind. Like that's definitely a first down. And, you know, you'd hope Juju gets down, but it could have been a touchdown. So yeah, there's definitely two sides to that coin, but nothing but mostly a healthy respect so far. We'll see about when we run it back next year.
That would be the thing. What was the last team that ran back wins?
Back-to-back Super Bowls.
I mean, there's been a lot. There's been teams that like made it back-to-back, like just even of recent history. But like, I'm trying to remember the last one that I want to say Patriots.
Patriots 04-05. I think that's it.
Yeah, that feels like the right answer. It felt like the Chiefs were going to do it before when you lost it. You know, Tom Brady.
Yeah, we would have had it, but the offensive line, there was no way we were winning that game. But yeah, 04, that would have been the Panthers and then the Eagles, the two Super Bowls for the Patriots there. And then they didn't win again for another 10 years. So
yeah, but you know, they're fine.
They had a good run.
I would say I feel bad for that fan base. I mean, I'll always say as a football fan, I love Tom. Well, I didn't say I love Tom Brady. I liked him I didn't like him up to a certain point, but then I became a fan of his. Okay. And I mean, if you literally had like the greatest quarterback of all time as your quarterback, like the only thing that I would say is better, but at least like he got the results that he did, is like if you can get two legendary quarterbacks back to back, something like, you know, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, something to where it's just like you went from one good quarterback to another good quarterback, and not like, you know, Cleveland Browns where we have like a ton of bad quarterbacks and like we don't know what it's like to have a good quarterback. We had one really good year with Baker that I did love, but obviously
it was sad because the Browns fans didn't know how to act. They were like, yeah, he deserves $45 billion a year. Like, whoa, hold on. He's all right.
I think our biggest defense of that time, and this is what I remember telling people, was look at our history of quarterbacks since the Browns came back. Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback in that of anybody that came before him. Like, I don't think anybody was even close. So we thought like, oh, like this is obviously the best we've ever seen. So like we better keep him. And look, he took us to the playoffs, but like his first year close to the playoffs, but also he didn't start and all this kind of stuff. I mean, he didn't start at the beginning of the year. And then the second year, his sophomore year was bad. Then he had this great third year, which obviously we went to the playoffs and we beat the Steelers, which was fantastic. I loved it. Literally, in the first quarter when we were up like 28-0, like some of those first few touchdowns, like after it happened, I just yelled, "What the fuck?" But in a good way, because like that doesn't happen to us. We would have been the team that in the first quarter is down 28-0. So that's kind of why we wanted to keep him. I wanted to keep him at least one more year, because going with his trend of like first year, great. Second year, bad. Third year, great. Fourth year, bad. So it's like, okay,
you're due. Yeah.
Like you're either going to have a good year and we're going to have this like weird pattern, or you're going to have two stinkers in a row and couldn't get rid of you. But I mean, that going the route that they did just opens up a whole nother can of worms. That the only thing that I say about it is I don't want to hear any Steelers fans talk shit. Simple as that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, obviously the off the field issues. It's a dude like Watson didn't play football for 2 seasons. Like that's a long time to sit out of the league. And just like as a rule, I'm like really weary of anybody who misses more than like 1 season in the league, just because the league moves so fast.
Yeah.
It's not like basketball where if you miss 2 seasons, you can like find your skill set and your new role and be like, okay, like I'm going to be a defensive guy, or I'm going to be a 3-and-D guy. Football. It's like you want to get your starting job back, and the league just moves too quickly. There's just too much new talent coming in. The game's constantly evolving. And yeah, I mean, Browns might be in a real bad spot if Watson doesn't dramatically improve.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing we have great right now is Chubb. Like, I remember at that draft, I wanted us to get Saquon Barkley. when we didn't, it's like, I've actually learned to be like, temper my expectations. And even if we don't get who I want, like, let's just see how things play out. Because there's been many times where something's happened with the Browns and I'm like, I hate this. And then it turns out like, oh no, that was actually like a good idea. So I was just like, okay, we didn't get Saquon. Like, let's see how good Nick Chubb is. And I've said many times since that, yeah, I'm glad to be wrong. Like, I'd much rather have Nick Chubb than Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon Barkley is bad, but Nick Chubb is just really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we can keep Kareem Hunt.
He's a fantastic like second option, running the ball. I know he didn't get too much production this year, but he was also really banged up, I think, and trying to play through it because it's a contract year for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to see him. Whether it's go to another team and maybe it's a 1-year deal to see what he can do. But yeah, I think he's a guy who has a lot more left in the tank. I just think he was really, really beat up with injuries and. The offense was just kind of weird for you guys once Watson came in because it's, you're trying to play Watson back into playing form, but at the same time, you have this excellent running attack and it's like, which scheme do you commit to?
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I knew what it was like for my team to win a Super Bowl. Closest thing I've had. And then I won't say it was my team winning a Super Bowl, but it was just rooting for the Bears and them making it to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember being ecstatic. And if I would actually get that with the Browns, it'd be like way more than I had for the Bears. And it's even the same thing with the Cavs winning a championship. Like that, to me, I mean, that was great. I'll never forget it, but let it be the Browns. Let them make it to the Super Bowl. Let them win the Super Bowl. Like, I won't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. And now the AFC is just so stacked with quarterbacks. Like, even there's going to be a couple of years where the Chiefs don't make it to the Super Bowl. Like, I hate to admit it, but like, it's just an impossible heater to stay on. So there's going to be a couple of years there where somebody else gets in, but like you've got the Chargers. Like, what if they put together a season where they aren't the Chargers? Like they actually win games instead of finding ways and inventing new ways to lose. What if like Baltimore figures it out and they pay Jackson and like they actually add some playmakers around him? Jacksonville, like what if this wasn't just a blip on the radar and they continue to be a competent team? Like they could put it together. I don't think Buffalo's ever going to put it together. I think they peaked in 2020, but they still have a lot of money coming in on them. A lot of people are in love with white boy Cam Newton. Josh Allen. There's just so many threats now in the AFC that, the Bengals, if the Chiefs slip on a banana peel, like this is kind of the last season for the Bengals before they got to pay everybody. So, if the Bengals can put together another run, like there's just so much competition in the AFC and you look over at the NFC and it's like, well, the Eagles, if they can find a way to keep it together and keep mixing in their young core with their veteran core, like they kind of got it on lock. Unless San Francisco can one, find a quarterback, and two, Kyle Shanahan cannot out scheme himself defensively. If getting his quarterbacks hurt, or offensively not getting his quarterbacks hurt. That's probably the only competition for them, I think.
Yeah. I'm kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen to Aaron Rodgers.
He's definitely going to play. I don't know where it's going to be because you're not going to not play for $60 million. If I'm the Jets, do you want those kind of problems? Like you can have a wide receiver or a running back who's a little out there, right? And they're, whether they're a diva or whether they are on some kind of different intellectual plane, that's okay. You don't want your quarterback being that far out there. And at this point in time, like, do you want to put up with this for even for 2 seasons, let's say? Like, you're going to be paying $60 million pretty much per season for these kind of antics. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think realistically, you need to be a team that's just a quarterback away to genuinely want Aaron Rodgers. Because other than that, the only thing is you're maybe selling jerseys and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, and like the I think the two best options when you're looking at quarterback away, I think it's the Raiders. Even though they're not just a quarterback away, they've put so much into competing last year and this year that like they have to kind of go all in, because unless they want to go right around and trade Adams and trade some of their other veterans, like they have to make a move to compete. And of course the Jets. And I think it comes down to the Jets because at this point, you've tried first round draft picks, you've tried late draft picks, you've tried plug and play veterans. Like, you need to do something. Either way, you're going to be tearing it down and building it back up again in 2 seasons. So instead of trying to patch this thing up with a rookie quarterback again and do that whole model, go get an Aaron Rodgers. It's going to cost you a first round draft pick. It's going to cost you another high pick, but at this point in time, like, what do you have to lose? You're the Jets. And
it's deja vu with Brett Favre.
It is wild. I wonder what Aaron Rodgers makes of that. It was almost like a generational curse.
Yeah. To the point of, it's like, there's so much deja vu in it of like only won 1 Super Bowl with the Packers. I think I've heard that Aaron Rodgers treats Jordan Love almost the same way that Brett Favre treated him.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go to the Jets, that's just one more notch in the, you're like Brett Favre, to the point of the Vikings just got to be like, all right, we're next.
And they could be next because this is Kirk Cousins last year. They're going to be looking for a quarterback next season or after next season. So yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's definitely in play.
Oh, that'd be just the weirdest deja vu in all of sports, because I mean, there's just way too much there.
Mm-hmm.
God, but even going back to what I was saying earlier, like I swore Aaron Rodgers was going to win more.
Well, it goes to what we were talking about a little bit earlier with like, and not like counting rings, but like winning 2 Super Bowls, like. Back with like, our formative years of being football fans, probably like late 90s, early 2000s. If you won 2 Super Bowls, like you were like, all right, you're in the top 10 all time quarterback discussion for winning 2. It was that hard to win 1. And then Brady came along and started racking them up. And then once he, gets past 3, it just changes the game, and it changes the conversation and the expectations for these quarterbacks to the point where you're like, okay, cool. You look like a franchise quarterback. You look like you're a top 5 quarterback in the league. You got to win multiples. And it's just like, it's just too hard in football. So yeah, that's why I think if you are Packers fans, you're disappointed with just the 1, but it wasn't all that long ago where, if you just got 1, like that was all you were asking for. It's more than you could ever really expect, just because it's that hard to win a Super Bowl every year.
Meanwhile, as a Browns fan, I'm just wanting us to make a Super Bowl.
Right.
Let alone, I mean, there's a lot of teams that have yet to win one.
Mm-hmm.
We're one of, I forget how many teams that have not even made the Super Bowl. Because I know the Vikings have made it but lost. Bengals made it but lost every time.
Yeah. Bills. Browns, Jags, Texans, and I think the Lions. I think that's...
Yeah. And what's sad about that is like 2 of them are like newer franchises. So it's like, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course the Texans haven't made it yet. Like, well, they've had less years, so it's not as big of a deal. But Browns and Lions, which that's a conversation I've had for a while of like, which city has it the worst?
Mm.
Detroit fans will say them. I still say us.
Hey, guys are just kind of like mirror images of each other, just in different conferences and divisions. You're always in like super competitive divisions,
mm-hmm.
and just like the way the cookie crumbles, it's like somebody's got to be 3rd, somebody's got to be 4th, and more times than not, like it's the Lions and the Browns in those divisions.
Oh, not even just like in football, just like also like if you count all the sports, basketball, we had more recent success, but in the 2000s, the Pistons were a better team.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, I think the last time we won the World Series was 1948. Last time they won the World Series, and I thought this was weird, 1984. So 48-84.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the fact that there was that link, granted, much more recent success for them, but like as a whole, like, I mean, the Indians / Guardians and the Tigers, just they're not the star-studded teams of the league. We're no Yankees.
Ooh, I don't even know if the Yankees are Yankees. As a Yankees fan, I'm less than pleased with this roster building, but yeah, it's I think if I was had to choose between being a Guardians fan or a Tigers fan, give me those Guardians, man. I mean, you got managerial stability with Francona there, yep. And a lot of those trades you guys made, getting rid of like your star players, like a lot of those prospects are hitting. Like the second baseman, is it him? It's not Jimenez, I don't think. But whoever the second baseman was, the rookie last season, like he was really good, ended up being an all-star. Like that came from a trade. Yeah, I'd rather be a Cleveland Guardians fan than a Tigers fan. Sorry to any Tigers fans out there.
I always said with the Yankees that there's a part of me that I wish I could buy a Babe Ruth jersey and like actually like support it and wear it, because like of all, like my favorite baseball player of all time is Babe Ruth. Okay. Just because like growing up, learning of his history and everything, like I think that somewhere in time in the 90s, I think was his 100th birthday. So there was a lot of like celebratory things for him. And obviously I think the movie came out way before that, but I remember learning a lot about Babe Ruth. Yeah. And knowing that like he was part of the Yankees, I can't like just wear a Babe Ruth jersey.
And he might have been black. It's like, yeah, we got Babe Ruth, baby.
Oh, I forgot. I did hear that lately, recently.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, Babe Ruth was great. No. And I think if I ever were to probably like pick a different team, like let's say the Guardians just didn't exist, I would potentially go for them. And obviously, like the New York Yankees logo is like the most iconic sports logo, I think, in all sports.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cowboys come close, but I feel just because of the history with the Yankees of like having all the championships, having like all these players like we just mentioned, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, among others, just Joe DiMaggio, like just, they were the like back then they just seemed to be like the first sports dynasty of our country.
Yeah, and then they take the dip in like the 70s and 80s. But once Steinbrenner gets the team, he spends a lot of money, as Gorilla Monsoon would say. And now as a Yankees fan, it's we're spending money, but we're spending it in the wrong places, and so it's pretty frustrating knowing that we've got $29 million committed to 38-year-old Josh Donaldson, who looks like he's swinging a rake out there. It's just his bat speed is just so slow and doesn't even pop, and committed $6 million to IKF and committed to playing him at shortstop, even though he's clearly a third baseman and like a backup role. And it's just, it's like we're half committed to being the Yankees with like keeping Judge and having Stanton still and going out and getting Rodon and Garrett Cole. And then we're also trying to like spend recklessly on almost playing Moneyball, but with like high dollar amount. Like if you love IKF and his analytics, you don't spend $6 million on a guy. Like that's a major league salary. Like that's a pretty penny to pay for, what's going to end up being a bench guy. Like you don't spend like that for that kind of talent. Especially when we're loaded in the farm system with infielders. Like why would we do such a thing? So a lot of questions when it comes to team building, especially like looking at the Astros. Like, man, hate the Astros, the Trashros. They definitely cheated. I think they'll still be cheating, but like, man, they don't have to cheat. They're so good. They're so good. And then they go ahead and add Jose Abreu. Like, oh yeah, our offseason move is going to be adding a former MVP and somebody who like could still bat 300 and put up 30 plus home runs. Like that's just sort of like, oh yeah, I guess we'll make that kind of move. Like that's our nonchalant offseason move. And it's just, man, it's like, why are we even going to play this season? Like, we ain't even got a shot. Like, we're still not better than the Astros. The only chance we have is like they slip on a banana peel and lose to the Mariners in like the first round of the playoffs. It's really the only hope.
Yeah, I think my thing with the baseball season is, for me, it's just too long. Like, football is my number one sport. I can watch and follow along with every other sport, but like, it comes nowhere near the same kind of passion that I have for football. So, like, I honestly couldn't tell you a lot of people that play on the Guardians. Like, Adam made the joke that like we don't watch baseball, like Guardians fans don't watch baseball until September, which I think is a slap in the face to a lot of Guardians fans I know, because there's people that I know that love baseball, and I'm just like, for a long time, I'm like, that's just, the season's really long. Like, you can go on a 10-game losing streak, but that doesn't mean shit. You go on a 10-game losing streak in football, like that's your season.
That's your season. Yeah,
like, you're done.
Coach is getting fired. Like, yeah, it's like for every 17 or 18 games in baseball, that equates to like what, a week or a week and a half in the NFL, like a game and a half in the NFL. Like, it's something like that.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like the Angels last season, like they went on like almost like 20-game losing streak, and like that's when Joe Madden got fired. And yeah, that was like, okay, like even though that happened in May, it was like, okay, like that was a long enough losing streak where it's like, okay, their season's done. Like, you have to go on like a 20-game skid pretty much to like disqualify yourself for the rest of the season.
You have to play like they did at the beginning of Major League.
Yes.
But the premise even of that movie, you could still like start off really shitty, but then like make something out of your season, because there's just, like I said, so many games. It's even the same way, I think, with, you know, basketball, and I don't understand as much about hockey.
I don't understand as much about hockey either. That is one sport where I'm like, cool, hockey playoffs, I'll watch. But yeah, during the regular season, I've usually got no idea. Like, I know the Devils are pretty good this year.
I don't know. They could be. I don't.
But yeah, that's a sport I definitely am a playoff tune-inner.
I'm not even as far with that. Like, I don't know, because like I don't live in a hockey market.
Right.
Like, the closest team we have are the Blue Jackets, and I don't know, to me, I don't feel a connection to them. Mm-hmm. So I've actually debated on getting into hockey. At one point, I would always claim that the Blackhawks are my team, because I have a lot of love for some of the Chicago teams, or I should say I used to. This was before the Indians Cubs World Series. I liked the Cubs. I never bought anything of them, but I just felt like, oh, like, they suffer like we do. And then, like, as soon as that World Series happened, even before a game started, like, as soon as they made it, I was like, all right, I don't think I can like them anymore. And then we lost, and I was like, I definitely cannot like them anymore. But after that, I'm like, I never really got into the Blackhawks that much, so we'll see. I really want to start rooting for the Phillies. Not the Phillies, but the Flyers.
The Flyers, okay.
Yeah, because of Gritty. Like, I'll see videos of him online. I'm like, all right, I kind of like him. And like, that's weird. That's all it took for me. I was like, he seems fun. I want to go to a game.
He's a draw, man. Gritty's the top babyface in territory, without question.
Yeah, I believe it. I even think the joke that I've heard, in which not necessarily about Gritty, but just about the Flyers, is that this trend of Philly losing in championship games will potentially be broken with the Flyers because they won't make it. Yeah, not looking too good for them. Like, but yeah, I mean, Philly lost the MLS, right? They lost baseball and, of course, football. Yeah. So, like, the 76ers could make it. Obviously, there's still, like, a lot to go, but they're in a position to where they can make the playoffs.
Yep.
But, like, I don't know if there's any possibility for the Flyers to make the playoffs. So that's kind of one thing Philly can kind of be happy about, that they won't see like all their teams lose in 1 year.
Yeah, their hearts need a little bit of a rest, and I think the Flyers will give it to them.
So let's switch some gears. I know you like Batman, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the Batman, the movie.
I already had my mind made up that like I was going to love it. Mm-hmm. but I also loved everything that I saw, not just because I had my mind made up. I loved the movie. I liked how Batman is not necessarily a finished product. He's not perfect by any stretch. Makes a lot of mistakes. The only thing that I have an issue with in the movie is at the very beginning where like Batman's all over the news and it's nighttime and people are trying to do bad things, but they're afraid because of Batman. And then there's these young people trying to jump the dude on the train for like the gang initiation. And then Batman comes and they have no idea who he is. And it's like, whoa, hold on. So you mean to tell me the guy that's all over the news, the guy that has all the criminals in the city shook, you young hip kids have no idea who he is? That was a little bit of like a logic flaw. But outside of that, outside of the 2 minutes, the rest of the 2 hours and 58 minutes, I really enjoyed. I think Pattinson is a fantastic Batman. I think the second Batman could really cement his spot. Because he's high up there for me. I thought he did really well.
What's your top Batman list?
Oh man, Keaton is my Batman, so it's like he's cemented at number one. Batman Returns is my not just my favorite Batman movie, but my favorite movie, period. So right now I go Keaton, and then I go Bale, and then Adam West, and then Lego Batman, and then Clooney, and then Kilmer.
Where's Pattinson on that? Are you just waiting until the next one?
Pattinson is I got him right now right below Keaton. Okay. But if I'm like brutally honest with myself, he's probably number one.
I think
my
number one is Bale, but as a whole, I love this whole new version of Batman of just making it more detective.
Absolutely. It's such a breath of fresh air to like focus in more on the detective work and kind of give you like a noir style movie, as opposed to just like a action romance movie.
Yeah, because I think if you go from the original Schumacher and Burton movies, like Batman was a hit, and like for a lot of people, like that was like the only like good Batman, like not counting Adam West because that's TV, but I'm like thinking movie wise. Then they come out with Nolan's trilogy, and that was like, oh wow, this is like another good way to do Batman. And I was like, well, where do you go from here? And when they tried what they did with Affleck, it's like I don't hate it, but it's just like you have a lot to live up to. And maybe like the benefit of them having the Affleck Batman to where they could do something like this and it's going to have less of a negative reaction because of you had something like soften the blow. And I'm not saying like the Affleck Batman was like horrible, but it was just like, it's just so much to follow in. And then obviously too, when you have Jared Leto as a Joker, like that's another crazy choice.
Yeah. I didn't even mention Affleck because I have no idea how to rate him. Like I have no idea. I don't know where he fits on the list. Like definitely not to top, but like I don't know if he's the worst. I don't know if he's third from the bottom. Like I just have no idea how to rate him because that whole little, I hate to say universe, but that little spell of Batfleck, it just like was weird, man. It was just a weird time. And to not do like a formal Batman movie, I don't know. I don't know. It's just easier for me to just kind of like omit him in general from being Batman because it's just a weird fit.
I mean, the DCEU from the jump it's been off.
Yeah. My thing is quit trying to be Marvel. Like I'm not a comic book person. Like my knowledge is strictly Batman. But I realize what Marvel does and a lot of people like it. And they have done a really good job, I guess, with interconnecting their universes or worlds or whatever. Stop trying to be that. Like, I think DC is best when it follows more of like the Nolan pattern of like being gritty and being like realistic and really being like cemented in reality, as opposed to the Marvel universe, which is, it's got some far out stuff out there, and you got to kind of suspend your disbelief. I'm like, why doesn't DC just kind of like drive into that? Like go the other way, go ultra realistic with like these characters existing, on Earth now as we know it.
I think for me, when it comes to DCEU, I want them to be more like Marvel, but only the fact of when DC started this off, they're like, all right, we're going to have this Superman, and then we're going to have Batman versus Superman, and then we're going to have, I'm trying to remember the exact order, but it seemed like Justice League was coming like really quick. And I'm like, whoa. Look what Marvel did. They gave you Iron Man. Then they gave you Incredible Hulk. Then they gave you Iron Man 2. Then Thor, and then Captain America. Movies that you can watch separately. Other than, Iron Man 1 and 2, like those are supposed to be together, but the rest like could be their own separate movies. The idea was like you take everything you started in all those, and that's where you get the Avengers. But it seems like they were just like, oh, we got to catch up to them. Like, no, introduce me to your characters. My whole issue with Justice League was like, I don't know why I need to care about Cyborg and Flash, because here's this big team up movie and you guys are like, all right, here's these two. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I want to like them. I mean, you give me a small backstory, but
right. You have to have the chance to get invested.
Yeah. But that's what Marvel did. It's like, well, here's 2 Iron Man movies. And like, obviously like people loved Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And so they loved Iron Man. Hulk has its issues, but it helped build what they had in the guy's foundation. But like, I just remember going from Iron Man 2 to that end credit scene being of Thor's hammer, and then going to Thor, having that end credit scene actually not be anything Captain America, is more a teaser for the Avengers, but still like you had like a whole movie to get invested in those characters and also get introduced to new characters who you were going to also get invested into. So I felt like it was a mess from the start, and then it seemed like every time you turned around, they were doing something that was just like weird. Or like, well, I know you're trying to create this universe, but like, why are you making a Joker movie? Which, granted, I like the Joker movie, but are you trying to do what you've always done and create these like separate movies of characters and everything that don't necessarily intertwine? Or are you trying to create this universe? Because even like with the Batman, they got this whole universe where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's this Joker movie and Batman movie. They have nothing to do with the DCEU, and they have nothing to do with each other.
Right. Yeah.
Which
is, I think is fine, but like, got to be clear about that, which I think they are going to be moving forward. But yeah,
I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the James Gunn reset. I want to see the Flash. I know that's a lot of people don't want to support Ezra Miller. I get it. I'm curious of what they're doing with everything Batman, because there is those Nolan Batman teases in there, but I don't know the extent of it. And obviously too, Michael Keaton's in there too, but
yeah, like they set the trap and I'm going to fall for the trap. Like, I know it's a trap. Like, I'm not interested in the Flash. I'm not interested in the person playing the Flash. I don't want anything to do with any of that. But you give me Keaton Batman, like, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to see it. And I 100% understand it's a trap to see what's probably going to be an otherwise bad movie and bad character, but it's Keaton Batman. I got to be there.
Yeah. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't want to support it. The funny thing is, like, prior to Ezra Miller coming out to be just a complete piece of shit, I was looking forward to it because I made that whole thing of the Justice League. I'm like, well, why do I need to care? Like, why should I care about the Flash? Which I remember watching that movie. I liked him, but like, I don't know, like, why I should, like, I don't know his backstory. And then they have this movie. So it's like, cool. Oh, he's a piece of shit. Fuck. And then I think on top of everything too, they're going to change a lot of the stuff. So we'll see how that fits in. It reminds me of X-Men. Like after 3, when just things got really chaotic.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm not an X-Men fan either, but I remember seeing the first 2 just because they were like such blockbusters. And yeah, I remember when it got to 3, it was like, okay, this seems off the rails. Even for my limited knowledge, it seemed off the rails.
Well, even with 3, they're like, the ending is just like, it's so weird. And then there's like a post-credit scene that I don't think ever really gets a payoff. And after that, they do a whole bunch of like different things, and then they kind of do a retcon type movie of like, oh, like we'll do this movie and like that means we can start over. But yeah, it's just it's so complicated. So from one superhero to the other, why do you like Bret Hart so much?
Oh, Mr. Hitman. Oh, now we're cooking, baby. Yeah, Mr. Hitman. He's my favorite, man. He's my favorite. Just from the time I was little, that was my dude, man. I started watching wrestling like literally as a baby, like just drawn to it. So by the time like my memories start forming, I'm like, 3 years old or so, and that's early 90s. So Hulkamania was still going strong, but like, dude, Bret Hart was just the man. So yeah, just naturally drawn to him. It's my number one. And then I think something that helps his case is there's definitely some things said during the Attitude Era at a different time, different era. Things that shouldn't have been said then still aren't okay now. But in comparison to the other things that have been done by like our heroes, like Bret's one of the only few that like hasn't really let us down. Like he's a good dude, and he's got his queen, and he still does a lot of good charity stuff, and he's the true definition of an independent contractor, which I really love. Like he's never like sold himself back. Like a lot of guys like, yeah, sign me up for that Legends deal, not Bret. Like Bret is going to sign his own deal and do his own thing and still have 100% flexibility to pop up and do whatever he wants. I mean, he's got his Roots of Fight store. He's got his own website. He'll stop in for AEW and do an appearance. He'll do indie stuff. He'll do signings. He'll stop by for, a big WWE show for a one-off. Like he's just a true definition of an independent contractor. Another thing that he doesn't get credit for is he is like sneakily always on the cutting edge in the 90s. Whether it's like you think of like the work rate Intercontinental Champions, but like Bret takes that to a whole different level. And it really doesn't get touched again like in the 90s, that expectation of like, oh, this is the workhorse Intercontinental Champion. Like the best version of that is Bret. He's the one having the all-time classic matches in the early 90s. It's not to turn this into a Shawn thing, but like Shawn's not having those classics in 1993 with his run. It's just not there. But yeah, he's on the cutting edge always of what's next in the business. Sneaking in the his love for the business at WrestleMania 8 and again at In Your House season's beatings against Bulldog and Hershey. Like little things like that. It's the first major table bump for WWF against Diesel in 95. It's the
introduction of the ladder match.
Right. Bring in the ladder match. It's the promo he cuts, the frustrated promo against Vince on that March Raw, that go home Raw to WrestleMania 13. Like that's like still the blueprint for like the worked shoot promo, is to try to find that frustration in that line that Bret toes during that promo. And then the match with Austin that follows. And then the whole like angle with Shawn where they're building up this animosity to look so real and eventually, work themselves into a shoot HH brother. But like Bret's just always on the cutting edge, and it's something he doesn't get credit for. It's something I've always appreciated about his work, looking back at it. And his work is just timeless, man. Like it's even the opposite of timeless. Like not the opposite of timeless, but like it gets better with time. And I just love Mr. Hitman. So yeah, hopefully I don't know if that answered any questions as to why, but yeah, those are just some of the things I love about Bret.
I think that it's fun that we both have a similar introduction to professional wrestling, to where like we can't technically pinpoint it. It's all about when our memory kicks in. Mm-hmm. For me, my dad was always watching it growing up. And I think at first I didn't necessarily care for it, but I was like, I was too young to understand. But at some point, and it might have just been because I always remember it was on Sunday afternoon, and like maybe just like sitting there week after week watching it while eating lunch. Like all of a sudden, like I became invested in it. And it took me a while to, like, I think follow storylines, but I also think this was 92, 93. Raw was about to start in 93. So I was probably seeing some superstars matches and everything. Like I know I was definitely watching WWF All American, but like I remember watching Razor Ramon and liking him. I remember watching Kona Crush and liking him. And I think Tatanka too. So like I had my favorites, but like I didn't know that much about them. But my first real memory when I'm like, I knew I was watching it prior, but like I was able to like start connecting storylines was when Lex Luger slammed Yokozuna on that.
The Intrepid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And after that, like I was able to focus like, oh, like, this is when he gets a title shot at SummerSlam. And early on, Bret was one of my favorites. And there's something about that time of just how cool he was to where I honestly don't know. Like if it wasn't for Bret, I don't know if Shawn would have been as popular. And I say that as someone who likes them both. Openly will never pick a side. They are tied for number one in my book of my favorite wrestler of all time. I will never put one over the other because I liked Bret first when the WrestleMania storyline happened, or I should say when Shawn became face. I started to like him more, and then fucking WrestleMania 12 was on my 10th birthday.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so like my two favorite wrestlers having a match, and I mean, I was rooting for Shawn. I wanted the boyhood dream to come true. After that, I mean, I still like Bret, still do. As an adult, I think I respect Bret a lot more. And then obviously knowing like 90s Shawn was as a person was a piece of shit. But yeah, love them both so much. But like Bret coming out, like just the shades, the sunglasses, like those as a kid, I remember like thinking like, those are so cool. I wanted a pair. I didn't get a pair until 2012. And I bought them directly from him at I don't want to say a merge table, but he was doing an autograph signing and he had some there that he was selling.
Funny. Okay.
Yeah. Which brings me, have you met Bret?
I have met Bret twice, but the main time was at a minor league baseball game in 2013. So I had I'd been training for, at that point, probably getting close to 2 years. I don't think I had started working yet. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I might have just debuted. But yeah, I went to a minor league baseball game, did the whole meet and greet thing. Cause I was like, when this is before he really started doing a lot more signings. So it's like, when am I going to get the chance to meet Bret? So yeah, at that time, like I'm still kind of like came up in a weird time where it was like, don't go to meet and greets, don't ask for mark pictures, like that, marking quotation marks. That whole like old school thing was like still there. So I was like, I gotta meet Bret though. Like I gotta do it. So like I met him and then, like he was nice enough to like comment on my size, even though I was like, still maybe 220 and 6'4", like, so I'm still looking pretty thin. But like that led to like, okay, well, I'm actually like a wrestler and, got to tell him that, he inspired me to, become a wrestler, and to go after that dream. And, the time he took, the extra time he took with me just to like talk with me there and make eye contact with me and sincerely tell me how much that meant to him. And the advice he gave me, just really sound. And it was, advice I still live by it. It's, he told me, make sure, he said, one, take care of your body because that's your tool to continue to do this. And he said, in taking care of your body, he said, I know you're young and, but always make sure that you sleep in a bed. He said, you're gonna, bounce around and sleep on couches and, try to save a buck and sleep on floors. But he was like, it's not worth it in the long run. Every night, make sure your body's in a bed. And it always stuck with me. Like, and it's something, I've definitely had a couple nights on some couches or floors, but, outside of a few exceptions, it's, no, I am paying because Bret Hart told me to. Like, I am paying to be in a hotel room, and I need to be in a bed, because that's what the Hitman said. And at that time, that was still like, oh, you need to earn a bed. You need to earn, earn your room, and not just earning your room, but then like earning your bed. That was a thing like reserved for the vets when I was coming up. So definitely took a lot out of the personal piggy bank, but I think in the long run it was worth it.
I'm not even a wrestler, but even like after a certain age, like I can't sleep on most couches. I can't sleep on floors. I mean, I can to an extent, but like I'm not feeling great.
Yeah. Especially if like you factor that in with like you have to be up early and then you've got to make a town. So you're going to be in a car for, 3 to 6 hours or whatever. And then after that you have to, go back home, and that's another, who knows how long. So it all adds up. And when you don't get that good night's sleep on that bed, it really sets you up for failure. So Mr. Hitman knew what he was talking about.
Or you can do what I did at the Mahoney Drive-In and sleep in a tent.
There you go.
Which that was like the first time I think I'd ever slept out in a tent, like closest to real camping I've ever done. And that's when I learned like, oh yeah, it does get really, really cold at night. Like I had like enough stuff for like what I thought I would need, but I was like, cause we did the 2-day thing. Like after the first night we ran up to Walmart and I'm like, we got to get like another blanket or two. Cause that was not enough.
Right. And then that was still during the summertime, right?
Yeah. That was end of May. No,
okay.
June. It was June.
Yeah, I'm not one for camping. I'm not that adventurous. But I did some camping as a teenager, and I'm not cut out for that. It gets way too cold, and there's too many unknown elements to deal with. But yeah, always make sure you got a bed to rest in at the end of the night. You
first met Brett like within about a year or so when I first met Brett. Which is it's the only time I met Brett actually. Was it was a show in Indiana, Fort Wayne. I think they still do this show like twice a year, like Heroes and Legends. Mm-hmm. And it was the first year they were like, not even just first year, the first show that they did. And I wasn't planning on going. And then I got asked by Jake Clemens to go out there with him. Like he needed someone to ride with and all this kind of stuff. Cause I don't know if this was his first, I don't want to say solo. He didn't want to go alone, which I get. I mean, now I wouldn't care, but at that time, I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. And Brett was going to be there. So I was like, well, I wasn't planning on going because I wasn't going to just necessarily drive myself, but riding with him, I remember after I got there, jumped in line to meet Brett. And this was like right after he had like some sort of surgery because like when he took pictures, like he couldn't really get up. So like all the pictures he was taking was sitting down, which I'm not a huge fan of pictures like that. But obviously in this case, it's like, it's this or nothing. And I was like, I'll take this. This is fine. And I remember, I shook his hand and I said, thank you for everything. It's just like as a fan being hooked on him early on, like, I mean, that's one of his Hasbros was one of my first wrestling figures. And I always say I can never remember which one it was because there was 4 that my dad got me, and I think they were on different occasions. Brett, Undertaker, Razor Ramon, and Punching Hulk Hogan. Which one I got first, I couldn't tell you, and I do not think they were on the same day. But I keep them in the same class of like, these were my first 4. Yeah. So, like, loved him. And just like thank him for like all the memories and all this kind of stuff, because I was kind of like you, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to do this again. I haven't, but I think I've had times where I could have. But being able to like check that off, meet him, I didn't want to tell him, my favorite match of his is the Iron Man match. I mean, he might like the compliment because of everything I went into doing it, but I mean, like, hey, I liked a match that you didn't win, and you were told to get out of the ring afterwards. But yeah, I got my the Bret Hart DVD signed. Okay, nice. I think it was like also right at the time they released like that dungeon. Okay, the second set. Yeah, the second. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you should get that. You'd be the first one to get it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like people are gonna get it over time, so it's like, what will it matter?" So I'm like, I want to get the first set DVD set because I think it just looks cool. Yeah, that's the one I have signed. Is that DVD set, and then
my best friend at Not the Tool Man, Tim Taylor, he went and saw Mr. Hitman this summer, and he got my Ultimate Edition Brett signed.
Nice.
For me. So yeah, I got a couple items, and then I also got on top of that, I've got a pair of Hitman shades myself that were gifted to me by PA indie wrestler Blind Rage. Super cool dude. I don't think he works anymore, but yeah, if you look up like results, he's definitely a guy that was around in like the mid 2000s a lot, and he knew how much I love Brett, and he happened to have a pair, and he's like, you're gonna love these like more than I do, so take them. So
were they?
Yeah, it's my little.
Were they an old school pair?
Yeah, they're an old school pair.
Oh,
yeah,
that's even better.
Yeah, I believe they're from the mid 90s. So yeah, looking at them, I think they're from like 95.
Is that when they're like pink and black?
Yeah, yep. It's got like almost like a black trim, and then the eye part, the eye shade is pink. Because I went to a house show. It's my first WWF show that I attended was the day before the curtain call at the Philadelphia Spectrum. And I knew Brett wasn't going to be there because he was off TV, but they were still selling Brett merch. So like I came home, I have the Brett foam finger, I've got a Brett t-shirt, and then I got the Hitman shades. I had the Hitman shades, and then throughout moving through the years, like they just got lost, which like always crushed me. So yeah, these are the same kind of Hitman shades from that mid 90s run.
Yeah, I think those are really cool because, granted, when I think of Brett, I think of like the all pink. But
yeah,
knowing that there were these other designs and like faintly remembering them, it's cool because they're definitely like rarer. And I think when he's made them, he's only done all pink and all silver, which I still need to get a all silver pair.
Oh, I would love to get my hands on the all silver ones.
And I mean, last I knew he was selling them directly, and I mean, that's not super expensive, but nonetheless. But I remember the shit that I brought back for my first show, which was crazy. As much as I liked Brett, and this was like in that era, because my first show was the WrestleMania 10 Revenge Tour. Everything that I got, I didn't get anything Brett, and I don't know why. Like I know I got a program, which that's been long gone. I had the Razor Ramon Razor necklace.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think I traded that to a kid later on. A foam intercontinental belt, which was hands down like my favorite. I beat the shit out of that thing. Like that was like my favorite toy. The gold paint came off it over the years. Parts of the foam and the plastic had come apart to the fact of like part of it like had to be kind of duct tape, not like hardcore championship style, but like on the back of it. And then there was one of the Tatanka foam tomahawk.
Oh, okay.
That was the one thing that I had the longest, but I decided to use it for a prop in a middle school talent show, and the friend of mine who was using it broke it the night.
Oh, it's a bummer.
Yeah, the night of the talent show. Like we did all these rehearsals and everything, no issue, and then like the night of, I don't know what he does, and it like rips. And I've looked at that thing on eBay, and it's like $100 right now. Or last time I looked, I should say.
Yeah, I know. I believe DJ from We Need Wrestling is also in the Tatanka foam tomahawk business. Yeah, it's a really cool piece of merchandise.
Yeah, I wish I knew why I didn't get a Bret Hart glasses. I hope that the real answer is they didn't have him that day, but this was the WrestleMania 10 Revenge Tour. He was the champion.
Yeah, I mean, they could have been sold out. Possibility.
Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I still love Bret. You know what's crazy? I don't have a lot of his figures. I think the only ones that I have, as I'm looking around my office, I think the only ones I have are his Hasbros and the Micro Brawler. I don't have anything current, like from Mattel. Okay. I mean by current.
Yeah, I've got the Heart Foundation Micro Brawler. It's kind of like my good luck charm. I keep it in my bag. Mm-hmm. And then I got the Survivor Series Elite with the my favorite Bret gear. I wish they would do an Ultimate Edition of the figure to get like the jacket and the glasses right, but it's the Survivor Series 96 gear with the pink, black, and orange trim. Of course, the Ultimate Edition I talked about. I've got the Target Ultimate Edition based on the Rumble 93 gear. That's pre-ordered and on the way. I've got Hasbro from my childhood, Bone Cruncher as well from series, I think series 1. Yeah. Might be it for my Brett figures. I need to get the new retros they've been doing. I want to get the Brett retro that came with like Anvil, Jimmy Hart, and Nikolai Volkov.
I want like a lot of those retros, but it comes down to money, and I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily want to shell it out for all that, but like I loved retros. Like I remember the first time I saw the retro set at my Walmart, and like I think the two that I picked up were Ultimate Warrior and Kevin Owens, and I kick myself because I remember seeing Roman Reigns ones there.
Oh yeah, those are those are still pretty hot.
And they could have been the Superman punch ones. I don't remember, but I remember like first seeing them, and like when I think of the punch figures, I think of Hogan because that was the one that I had growing up. I know other people think, Virgil. I think there's a couple other punchers, but that's why I was like, Roman gets a Hulk Hogan style figure, cool. But I still never bought it. And then like obviously when the prices shot up on that, I was like, I should have bought some because they were there for a while.
Yeah, I did the same. I passed on the retros, and I was like, well, there's more time. Like I'll collect them over time. I just wasn't in a position to hop on. But missed opportunities for sure.
Actually, I'm wrong. I think I do have one. I have a loose Brett. I have like a drawer with some loose figures in it. So I forget about them sometimes. But I think it's like it might be SummerSlam 91 Brett. I think it was.
Okay, I have that Brett too. I forgot about that. I got the Chase. The Chase Brett from that Elite was Elite 98 maybe 99. So.
Or maybe it's not that one. It's whatever one that was like basic and it was like all pink.
Oh, that was the 89.
89. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine gave me that. He had that and WrestleMania 12 Shawn Michaels, and he just gave it to me.
Nice.
The only thing that sucked about like that Shawn, and like he didn't have the belt with it, and I literally ended up having to go to a toy store, and I bought like a Ric Flair that came with the Winged Eagle, but it was just so I can get the belt, and then I eventually bought it mint on card. But yeah, I definitely need to buy more Brett. Actually, you know what? You know one weird Brett thing that I have? I remember telling somebody this. They're like, they made that? And I'm like, yeah. I have the Wrestling with Shadows soundtrack.
Oh, cool. That's a neat nugget.
I think the coolest thing that's on there, it has this WCW theme on there.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I might have it right beside me. Got my wrestling CDs. Let me read the track listing on here. Yeah, there's a Hitman theme. There's Rob Zombie Super Beast. There's a Bryan Adams song on here. There's a bunch of other bands I've never heard of. Oh yeah, the Rascals. The Rascals had something to do with this album. Oh, because I think there was now I'm remembering something that I'd forgot about. There was a song like Sharpshooter. I think there was a music video for it. The song was called Sharpshooter Best of the Best by Rascals. Yeah, fun little
that's definitely a cool one.
As I put it back with my wrestling albums in between the Hulk Hogan and Macho Man CDs. But speaking of Bret Hart, do you think the Montreal Screwjob was a work?
Oh boy. So on my big answer is to say, of course, it was a shoot, yada yada yada, all the lives it affected, how hard Bret took it. Oh, got it. But my heart of hearts, I think it's a work. And I point back to what I said earlier about Bret being on the cutting edge. Mm-hmm. Another quality of Bret, another trait of Bret is I think he's the best. He's got the best finishes in wrestling to his matches. There's so many iconic endings to his matches. Mm-hmm. I don't think any wrestler has half the amount of memorable finishes that Bret does. You can just say WrestleMania 8 finish and people know what that is. You can say WrestleMania 10 finish. People know what that is. You can say SummerSlam 92 finish and people know what that is. So I think that the Montreal Screwjob is the greatest finish of all time. And I think that Brett and Vince were in on it being a screw job. And then I think that Brett plays, So I think Brett and Vince are in on it and they set up the screw job. And then Vince goes and there's the confrontation with, Brett's not going to drop the title to Shawn in Montreal, yada, yada, yada. What are we going to do? We're running out of time to drop the title. And Vince takes that to his circle of goons, right? So Pritchard, Cornette, Briscoe, Shawn, Triple H, Russo. And I think Vince kind of leads the witness to get people to mention, well, hey, why don't we just shoot the finish on him? And so I think everybody else in that circle and those who claim to be in on it, they think that they came up with it, but I think that it's actually Brett and Vince at the bottom of it, understanding that they need to work together to pull this off. And I think that's why Brett kind of took it so personally that Shawn and other people who swear to God that they had nothing to do with it and had no knowledge of it would lie straight to his face about it. And then I even think after the fact, like if you watch that Raw after the screw job and even like the weeks following, Jim Ross still has a very respectful tone. And even like King, like the way they talk about Bret Hart, it's not the way that you would expect. Like they still put Bret Hart over. And I feel like that's like a condition of him doing the finish and leaving is like, because I think Bret's legacy is very important to him. And they treat him, even though he's not there, and quote unquote refuses to do business, they still treat him with like the utmost reverence in leaving. Like even Stone Cold, who like is in a blood feud with Bret for the whole year. Like when he's still mentioning Bret in like early 98, like he has a different tone to him when talking about Bret. So I think things definitely went wrong along the way because, the next night they've got the little person dressed as Bret out there and, Bret didn't like that. And then you've got Shawn immediately bad mouthing Bret and getting a lot of those shoot style comments in. And then of course you have everything that happens with Owen and, WWF, with their hand being responsible in that. And should I put an allegedly there just so we don't get sued? I'll say allegedly. But obviously there's, a lot of fault to be found there. And I think when you just start adding up the things there, I think a lot of that bad blood just became too much for Bret to possibly come back that quickly after his WCW contract.
Have you ever heard of the documentary actually called The Montreal Theory about how it was all a work?
I haven't watched it, but I've seen clips of it. And I'm also with Kevin Nash because I think Nash talks about like, look how it's filmed. It's filmed like it's supposed to be caught on camera. They never stop shooting. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to the promo on that Go Home Raw after the cage match with Sid and Bret, where Bret cuts the frustrated promo, a lot of the positioning of Vince and Bret, it's almost like a dry run for the screw job where Vince is on the outside and he has his back to the hard cam and then they're shooting behind Vince. So you actually see, the side of the camera you usually don't see. Mm-hmm. And Bret's, positioning, hanging on the top rope and leaning on the top rope and the pacing back and forth and going to the corner. Like a lot of the as Jim Ross would say, the body English is very similar to Montreal. And I feel like that was almost a dry run for the screw job.
I could see that. I've always thought about it just when the idea of this being a work came to mind was look at how the business changed afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It was like heavily in WWE's favor, and being able to have Bret go to the competition, and I don't necessarily want to say, sabotage it from the inside, but, hey, I can't pay you, but he'll pay you. Just take the money. And the fact that like this also helped launch arguably one of the best heels of the Attitude Era, or even of all time, of Mr. McMahon. Like, it seems perfect. And you also bring in the fact of, like, kind of we mentioned what's Wrestling with Shadows. Like, you had a documentary crew there to catch all this other stuff. And, like, it's not like, you know, he showed up that day with the crew. I mean, they had been there a while. To the point, too, there's so much of that encounter that happened backstage that it's just behind closed doors. You're the only people that know really what happened are in the room, and they're all in on it, allegedly.
Who knows, man? But yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence that points to this being one of the greatest works of all time, and I think it goes one of two ways. Where either it goes unanswered for the rest of time, and you know, as we slowly start losing our legends, as we get older, so do they. So the people in the room, the people that could answer to that, you know, pass one by one, or two, it's just going to kind of be like, I think it's a Golden State Killer, where it's just like some dude on Facebook is like, or Zodiac, sorry. Where some dude on Facebook is just like, oh yeah, here's my buddy. I think he's a Zodiac Killer. Like, one of Brett's kids is just going to go on Facebook and be like, oh yeah, it was all a work. And, and it's going to be super anticlimactic.
It could be like Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman, to where it wasn't like public knowledge that how much of a work that was until like they did something in the 90s. And ironically, of all, in like it was the early 90s, ironically, fucking Jim Carrey's the one that like mentioned it, and this was way before Man on the Moon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Brett is just so, if it is a work, and my theory is somewhat correct, you know, I think his pride, you know, it hinges on him not revealing that is the greatest work of all time.
Yeah, because at this point, what's the use of telling people?
Right.
Like, you look so much cooler of knowing that this is like your secret, but also too with Brett, it's not just him keeping the secret. It's Vince, potentially if Sean knew, if Triple H knew,
well, and that's the genius of it, is I think the only people that know that it's actually work, in my theory, is Vince and Brett, because I think Vince led Sean and Hunter and whoever else to say it's a screw job so that they think they came up with it, but really the ones who came up with it are Brett and Vince, and I think those two will go to the grave with that.
Yeah.
That's my true crime only murders in the building-esque theory on the Montreal screw job.
All right, before we get into the Fave 5 questions, with this being sadly the only Black History Month question that we do, kind of got to go with the theme that I've had for these interviews, and just to kind of like ask you, or just basically let you talk about, you know, what it was like growing up Black, any type of struggles or obviously racism you would run into, and, you know, was there anything like that while you were getting into the wrestling business and obviously starting to wrestle?
Definitely growing up, and there's things that like you don't fully catch when you're little that like kind of come back to you as you get older, and even like as I like got into college, like I think with like, you know, Obama becoming president, that lit I don't know if it emboldened some people to be a little bit more flagrant with their racism and feelings, but like that's when I started like noticing like, oh, like it's a lot more than like I remember it being, and a lot worse. So like those are probably like some of the tougher times, like experiencing racism in my life, but then like getting into the business, and I guess I'm blessed. I'm definitely blessed. I don't feel like I've come across any blatant forms of racism that I've noticed or felt like were directly related to me, or anybody like in my circle either. Like I haven't seen it, and you know, maybe that was just because I ran in a pretty tight circle in Shikara.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, that brand had had their own issues. But racism was never one that I experienced or saw other people really experience. I think there's some tropes that still are, I'll say, almost like defaulted when it comes to like Black people needing to dance in wrestling, Black people not just being allowed to like be themselves. So it's like, how many tatted up white dudes with the that haircut that everybody has, that throw like MMA fake looking kicks? Like, how many dudes are like that? Like a million. Mm-hmm. And how many like bald bearded white dudes are there on any show poster at any given time? But like a Black dude can't just be a Black person. Like, oh, they have to dance, or like, oh, they have to be a preacher, or it's like now there's like, we're allowed to like have more personality. So like, I think you're seeing a lot more people being like, and this might be an effect of like mainstream of like the New Day, where it's like Black people are allowed to like tap into their pop culture, whether it's like Dragon Ball Z or like anime. Like, you're starting to like see that door open a little bit. And I think it's great for just letting people like, be who they are without having to like play a trope. So like, I still think there's a long way to go when it comes to that. I think another thing like I've noticed, and maybe this is just like my opinion or my perception, but it almost feels like there's only ever like 2 or 3 Black talents on the indies allowed to like be hot and be like the go-to person to book at a time. Mm-hmm. Whether that was like ACH or it was like Leo Rush. And like, I feel like just at any given time for like, a 2 or 3 year span, it's like, okay, this is the Black dude to book. And it's like, well, there you can there's more there, like there's definitely more talent that you could bring in. And I think what Reg does with the BW listing every year that he does, it's fantastic, because it just shows like how much Black talent is out there. Men, women, non-binary. There's just a ton of talent out there. Because I think the first offense that people bring up, I don't think it's from a place of malice. It's just like not knowing. It's when people want to see more talent on these indie shows that maybe they don't know of, that aren't the hot name for that year. It's okay. Well, who is it? Like, who you tell me, like, who are the talents to bring in, because I don't know them. Or when AEW had I think probably a year, maybe even longer than that. There is a big pointing out online about the lack of diversity as far as the stars of their show go. Because I think there's a difference between having stars of the show and having your roster. And so not having Black people represented in the stars of their show. And that was something they like had to go over. And a lot of people were saying like, okay, well, who? And to that, I would say, like, not for him to catch a stray, sorry, but like, I'd never heard of Kip Sabian. I'd never seen a Kip Sabian match, but he's a guy who gets a ton of TV time on AEW. He's been a featured player. It's like, do we have a Black equivalent to Kip Sabian, who's like kind of like a baseline AEW dude? Do we? Like,
now that I can think of.
Right. So it's like, that's kind of like my go-to example of like just how far still we have to come, because it's like, it's still like the having to work twice as hard for half the opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's there, and sorry for Kip Sabian catching a stray there, but like, that's just my go-to example of, somebody I'd never heard of, had never seen. Not that he's not deserving or have the ability to be where he's at, but just like, never seen this dude before in my life, never heard of him in my life, never seen a match, but here he is on TV. And so why can't we have more diverse looking talent in that same positioning? And I think that's something they've definitely gotten better at. Like, love seeing Stocks and Hobbs, mm-hmm. And Swerve Strickland, and they've done an excellent job of incorporating more talent. more black talent. Acclaimed killing it. Like Athena doing her thing on Dark, beating people up, rocks. So, but yeah, that it's still, that's kind of like my bar is like, until we can kind of just have like a black dude or, black person who's just on TV and they're just like, okay. I'm like, we still have a long way to go, because I feel like you still have to be exceptional, or way above the bar to kind of justify your spot on TV or on an indie show.
I think the thing that I love most about the Acclaim is it was so natural of like them becoming popular. Like they hit the right beats with storylines. I've been a fan of Max Caster even before he was, signed to AEW. Just finding a way to have him be highlighted and spotlighted, especially with the rap. Like I remember like one of the first times he came out, like a friend of mine on Twitter was like, oh, why is this guy trying to be like John Cena? I'm like, listen, I like John Cena. I love the rap stuff, but this is a guy that was doing it prior to being signed. Like I know John loved it, but like he just someone who made a part of his gimmick. Max actually, he's recorded stuff. Even at that point, that was way before, I know they created like a whole Acclaim album, which is like a lot of like small, short songs. But nonetheless, like that was like a part of like what the dude like would do online to get noticed. And yeah, it caught on. And to the point of, when they just recently lost the tag titles, I know so many people are like, oh my God, that was the dumbest thing AEW did. They're trying to be like WWE and do all these like bad decisions. And I'm like, no, I think the Acclaim's going to win those titles back. And that's going to be the point. Like, right.
And they'll be I guess they'll join a short list of being, 2-time AEW tag team champions. But yeah, I feel confident that it's just kind of like they don't have any other tag team programs readily available. And like, also like, if you beat the Acclaim, like you're the bad guys. So like, what other tag team do you want to like heal up right now? Like the Guns are kind of the perfect team to do that, because, everybody wants to boo those dudes. And it'll be a great moment when the Acclaim get the belts back. And I don't mean to just pile on AEW, because like WWE literally had a WrestleMania storyline that wasn't even supposed to happen based off of, 50 plus years of racism, and holding down black talent at the top of their card, with Kofi Mania. So like, I mean, it's rampant. But I have hope and pray that, it's getting better and is, I think the indies play a big role in that, because, it's almost like the NFL, and like the increase in black quarterbacks in the NFL, they can only play what's being produced. And, if the indie scene, if these promoters, if these companies keep getting behind black talent and giving them positions to succeed and booking them well and presenting them well, then, when it comes time for like, okay, who are the hot names to sign, either one of these companies need to make a big splash, who are the blue chippers, hopefully we get a class that's, majority black, majority, of other nationalities and races as well. So that's my hope, and that's where I'd love to see things go. But yeah, kind of, not to put it all on the indies, but the indies play a big role in that, because these companies can get behind these talents and create that buzz, so that when a big signing needs to happen, it's black talent at the top of that list.
And we're to a point now where there's companies that highlight black talent, like on their whole card, like Black Wrestlers Matter. I know the OWA here in Ohio, they do Good Trouble shows.
Yeah.
And I've been to 2 of those, and I fucking love them. And then there's also
Black Girl Magic, right?
I was actually thinking of the whole For the Culture thing, but I couldn't remember if one was done last year. But nonetheless, like, it's just, we have found more shows to just be like, here's a whole card of talent. Like, if you're not familiar with them, learn, and just shows you there's a lot of like star talent out there. Like like going to Good Trouble, like there was a few black wrestlers that I had never necessarily heard of, and now I'm fans of theirs, and I'm going to continue to follow them. Like one of them like is kind of like more Ohio based, but he's getting out a little bit more here and there, and like I'm fucking rooting for him. And there's so many out there like that, and it's just giving them the spotlight and seeing what they do. Even like I've even said it for like AIW of, you know, Broner went from kind of being a no name in Michigan, because that's sadly what that scene is. Like, no offense to anybody who's a Michigan independent wrestling fan, but like I know very little about that scene, because it's either they're not making a splash or wrestlers are only wrestling there. Like, it's just to me, that's what it is. But soon as he like stepped out, like started doing more shows in Ohio, obviously AIW being one of them, like this is a dude that picked up a little bit of momentum. I mean, I'd like to see him do a lot more than he has, but you know, getting like 2 matches just last year, Minoru Suzuki and Eddie Kingston, like, jeez.
Yeah, like I don't think I've ever met him, but like I was just so happy for him to see him make that kind of splash so quickly. And like I didn't know where he like, you know, where he was from originally. Like I didn't know he came out of Michigan, but like just seeing his work on Twitter, it's like, okay, like this dude has like some polish to him. Like he's been around for a little bit, or at least adapted very quickly. Like this isn't his first stop. Like he's been somewhere else before. And you can just see like how good he is, and then he, like the presence he has, and he strikes. Oh my gosh, man! Like, oh man, they look like the business. And to see him get those matches with AIW, like I got so excited. Like, and again, never met the dude. I don't know if he knows I exist, but like, you know, just happy for him to see him come up and to see him get those big opportunities, and to see, you know, AIW. You know, be the ones to provide that.
I think I mentioned it last year, and it's oddly funny that I'm holding one of his Bendums, but like, could you imagine what it would have been like if Ahmed Johnson would have won the WWF Championship?
Oh man, it would have been dope, because like he was supposed to be, you know, he's supposed to be Michael Jordan. Like he was supposed to be the WWF's Michael Jordan. Like it's no accident that he's wearing all red and he has the ear piercing and he did like the tongue gimmick.
Bald head, goatee.
Right. Yeah. The whole look, right. He's supposed to be the wrestler version of Michael Jordan. Oh, man, like just it doesn't have to have a long run, but like just to see it happen would have been awesome. He definitely had charisma. Like, you know, it's almost Sid-esque, the charisma he had when he was dialed in before the injuries started taking their toll. You know, don't know what all he would have done with it and how good the actual run would have been, but at the moment would have been really cool.
Yeah, I remember around that time I loved Ahmed. Just the part of it, like his music. I love the Pearl River Plunge. He just had this intensity about him too. Like, was he the greatest wrestler ever? No, but at that time as a kid, like I didn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucked that those injuries happened and all that, but man, I look back at that time. If you would have told me that there was a possibility of him becoming champion, which I know he didn't, like I would have been so excited. Like, and I have to be not the only one.
Yeah, man. You know, wish he would have got some of that boyhood dream. You know, cut that a little bit short, but you know, that's a little bit of my anti-Sean bias coming in. But yeah, I mean, that would have been the time, right? Like late 96. And then unfortunately the kidney incident with Farouk, and then, you know, after that the injuries just pile up. So it's never the right time, but yeah, it would have been awesome. Going
back real quick to the whole, you know, Brett Screwjob thing, like right around that era. You know what I would have really liked to have seen come out of the Screwjob, because of how hot the angle was going for a brief period of time? Imagine if they would have strapped up fucking Owen.
Yeah, that's like, because obviously like the move is Austin at WrestleMania. Like we all know where that's going. Even in November 97, it's very clear. And like, not that they should have changed paths, but it's like, when do you put the title on Owen? You know, do you try to sneak a run in from Rumble to February? Maybe that would have been the window, and to have Shawn and DX, you know, get the belt back. But you know, then you have Shawn's alleged back injury at Royal Rumble. So it's like, when would have happened? But yeah, he had so much juice behind him. Attacking Shawn at the DX pay-per-view in December. They definitely should have done something with Owen.
I kind of would have liked to have seen him become champion at Royal Rumble. Shawn doesn't get it back. Like, maybe you send him off a little early. Have it be Owen versus Austin at WrestleMania. I'm not sure about how those two felt about each other. You know, I've heard Austin's side. Sadly, we'll never know Owen's side. I personally just think, I'm not knowing the dude, but like, he doesn't seem to be the kind of person that didn't apologize on purpose or for any type of like bad reason. I think it could have been a pride thing. It could have been a lot of things, or maybe, you know, felt too guilty. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's way more to that story than we know.
Right. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem in line with the character of Owen Hart from anybody else's, you know, retelling or recollections and sharing of his memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
So like, if those two would have been like good to work together at that WrestleMania, like, it would have been obvious that Stone Cold was going to win. You wouldn't have the thing with Tyson, which fine, whatever. But you could have played into that storyline of like, you know, the last time we had a match, like, I broke your neck. Like, I'll do it again at WrestleMania, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, Austin gets his revenge and he walks out. Oh, granted, he walked out champion the other time, but he also walked out with a broken neck. I don't know. I just, like, if there would have been any time to strap Owen, it was right after that. Cause every so once in a while, I'll go back and watch that Blackheart promo when Vince calls him out. And I'm like, that was the Owen to get behind.
Yeah. And
I think because of the route they were on, they didn't want to divert from it.
Yep. Almost eerie how the company seems to you know, repeat their decision making. Because I feel like we're in a similar situation now where, you know, the clear and obvious choice is old Sam Zayn to get behind. But, you know, the plan is the plan. Except with Stone Cold Steve Austin, the plan's actually, you know, the greatest plan of all time.
I'll say this about the Sami Zayn thing. I've said it online, at least on TikTok, that I kind of think Sami Zayn's moment's going to be WrestleMania 40. If they do it right, which that's a big if. The smart thing would be to put Sami Zayn in the tag title picture for a while. Have him and KO win it, because that would be so much fun to see, like, those two together. And if I'm going to compare it to anything, I'm going to compare it to Daniel Bryan. And when it took him 2 years from WrestleMania 28, losing it in, you know, so many seconds, 18 seconds, to re-winning the titles back at WrestleMania 30. And like, the big thing that was in the middle was Team Hell No. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily want it to see to be the kind of the same thing, but like, if you keep Sammy occupied with like him and Kevin Owens, that could buy you some time. And then somehow Sammy has to start going for the title. And I would like to see Roman be the champion at that point. Whether he loses it at this WrestleMania or not, obviously I don't know, but I look at it as, look at the end of WrestleMania 10, look at the end of WrestleMania 20, and look at the end of WrestleMania 30. Sami Zayn fits in that line of being WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, sure does. I could see that. Like, you know, I still don't think, and it's not questioning the ability of Sam Zayn whatsoever. It's just like the perfect storm of like the timing, the fans being behind him. Like, you know, best case scenario, he's like a 9.5 out of 10 come like next year. Whereas like this year, it's, you know, it's a 20 out of 10. It's just off the charts. It's one of those things where it's just like, you can't like manufacture that kind of timing and momentum that's behind him right now. But you brought up the big dog of the World Wrestling Federation, Roman Reigns, my current favorite superstar. I love the big dog. I will be very sad if the big dog does not leave this WrestleMania as WWE champion, especially with him beating Sammy at I still want to call it No Way Out, but at Elimination Chamber. I'm all in on him beating Bruno. My theory is, even if the bloodline stuff tapers off, even if he's just like having challenger of the quarter, I've sat through a lot worse. And I think even on a decline, whatever the bloodline ends up being, whatever Roman Reigns ends up being individually, it will still be worlds better than I think they will do once he's not champion.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on, and at this time, it's like, in my lifetime, like, what are the chances that somebody could even get to like half of Bruno's record? There's just too much television. There's too many pay-per-views. Our attention spans demand for better, and always demand new. So like that's always been like out of question. It's always been, an unapproachable, unfathomable record to break. But we're sneaky, like almost at the halfway point. Not too much longer to get there. And it's like, okay, we're like shin deep. Let's just keep going in.
What's Bruno's record again?
Was it 8 years?
Oh man. I think to get as far as we've got now is huge. Like I was going to say I didn't think CM Punk's record was ever going to get beat, but I always felt like soon as everything happened with Punk, they were going to find a way to erase that out of the history book, just like they did with the Divas title, with AJ having, I think, the longest reign. So I knew the Punk's record was going to be harder to beat, but at this point, I mean, it's been beat. It's kind of overshadowed. Getting to 8 years.
Just keep going, baby. Just keep going. Almost getting close to 1,000 days. He's got, I think Bruno is like 2,800 and something days. So I don't know. We'll probably never get there, but I would love to just see another year of Roman as champ. 40. I always pinpointed 40 as the time he should lose the title. Like if he's not going to go all the way, I always thought 40 is where you should end it.
Yeah, that would be the monumental place to have like Sammy beat him.
Yeah,
and I think
it's going to be in Philly. Like that crowd's going to be lit.
Oh yeah, I think that's the other part of it that I fail to remind people. Just like as great as it would have been in Montreal, let it be WrestleMania in Philly.
WrestleMania gritty, baby.
And I there's also the fact of he could just win Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I hope that's not something to rely on. I'd love to see him like win the Rumble.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've said with wrestling that I would love to see WWE do, but I don't think they have the balls, fake an injury on somebody. Like somebody you want to put in a good position, fake an injury and have them out a number of months, just so you know they're going to be fresh, and then bring them back at Royal Rumble. Like imagine this, like let's say come SummerSlam, Sammy's fine, but he gets, quote, injured. Keep him out till Royal Rumble. Have him come back. I hate saying 30, but 30 is that spot. That place would go fucking nuts. And then he wins. Oh, that's a story.
Yeah. Time will tell. Time will tell. But we got to get through this WrestleMania and make sure the big dog stays champ. Ooh-ah.
All right. Before we go, let's get into the Fave 5 questions.
Hey, this is five-time champ, and this is the Fave 5 questions. Now, can you dig it?
All right. We've kind of tapped on it. Best physical portrayal of the Joker.
Ooh. Gotta go Heath Ledger.
Okay. It's kind of wondering if you would have gone Jack Nicholson, because you said
very close. Very close.
They're both so good. And I word it to physical portrayal just because so many people would just be like, oh, Mark Hamill. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. He's the voice, but like he hasn't had to get in the makeup and everything like someone doing a movie. And I think I've had someone say like, oh, well, he's done appearances. I'm like, no, that's okay. He showed up on stage at Comic-Con in the makeup. Great. He didn't spend like a month, if not longer, or however long, like getting that makeup every day and all that kind of stuff. Like I want somebody who like had to go through it like a multiple times, just like on the same level. Like, which granted, Mark Hamill, voice Joker, great. But Heath Ledger, for me, he blurred the line of being Heath Ledger and being just the Joker.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Question number 2. Let's go with favorite video game console of all time.
That's a tough one. Probably Nintendo 64. That is like 100% just like nostalgia. After N64, I became like strictly PlayStation. So like PS2 all the way up to PS5 now. But N64 will always have my heart.
So many people love that system, and I'm just not a fan. Like, I don't necessarily hate it, but I think it's because like my favorite system of all time is the Super Nintendo. And like I hated the controller of the N64, especially with like how nice the Super Nintendo controller is. And some of those like early 3D games are just, I don't know, just really wasn't a fan.
Yeah, see, I didn't grow up with Nintendo. I grew up with Sega Genesis. That was my first system. And then I went from Genesis to N64. So I missed out on like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo part of the nostalgia.
Sega Genesis, I'm sorry.
Okay, it was good for Royal Rumble and WF Raw. And I think I had like a Namco game that had like Pac-Man and all the other games on there. That was pretty much it.
I had Raw, I had Royal Rumble. I think Royal Rumble was the first wrestling game I ever got. But whenever I think of like Sega, like which granted, like no knock on Sonic, like those games still hold up. The game that I remember thinking I was gonna love, but every time I've tried to play it, I'm like, oh my god, this game sucks. Echo the Dolphin. Like I've tried, but that game sucks.
Yeah. The game I always tried playing and was disappointed with was always the Batman game. I think I just was too young to like fully figure it out. Was it, and the Animaniacs game always got stuck on some level, but was it Batman Returns? I think so.
Like I know I've played that for Super Nintendo, and like that I think even too there's a Batman Forever game. So you're talking like right at the end of the lifespan of the Super Nintendo. Yeah, it's another like weird game. Just though there's I had for Game Boy, the Batman Game Boy game for the first movie is a pretty fun game, and I think I've never played the Nintendo version, but I heard like that's a good one too.
Okay, I only game I ever had for Game Boy was WF Superstars 2. I think that was it, and it had like the steel cage match, and it had like Sid and Undertaker. So just like would take turns being Sid or Undertaker and just running through the whole roster, beating up the Mountie.
The greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
The Mountie?
It's a inside joke that me and a friend have. Like he's from Montreal. It actually came from like an old podcast that we were on, and when I met Jacques Rougeau, I told him that he was the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, and he got a kick out of me saying it. Like, I mean, he didn't fucking believe it. Like, Jimmy Hart was next to him. He's like, this guy just called me the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, and he was fucking laughing while he was saying it. Like, that was great.
Oh, what a ham that guy is. Yeah, I've heard bad things, but on the surface, I mean, the Mountie's classic character.
You might be biased with this, but I could be wrong. Sheets or Wawa?
Ooh, I've been converted to Sheets, but Wawa, I still like every time I go in, I'm hoping for an experience of like bygone years. So another situation where like my heart, Wawa has my heart, but like in all practicality, it's Sheets. I just think there's a better variety, and I think their bathrooms are better.
I'm trying to remember if I've ever gone to the bathroom at Wawa. I feel like I haven't.
Yeah, it's like 10 out of 10 a bad time every time, whereas like a Sheets, it's like a 60-40 split. They used to have excellent bathrooms at Sheets. It was like there was no doubt your hiney was going to be clean. There was nothing to worry about at Sheets, but that's changed, and I guess standards have dipped a little bit. But yeah, I go with Sheets, man. Sheets, yeah, more drinks, more better snack selection. I think they got better food selection. So yeah, give me Sheets.
Main thing I like about Wawa, and it's like the only thing that I think it's better than when it comes to comparing it to Sheets, I do love the cookies and cream milk.
See, I'm not a milk drinker. I'm not a coffee drinker either. I think if I was those two things, then Wawa would probably be my number one. But yeah, neither for me.
Well, there's a few questions here that I don't have to ask you. Question number 4. Wings, bone in or out?
Bone out, man. Give me less work. Just give me straight up meat. Clip that and use that. But yeah, just yeah. I don't know. I don't want to eat around the bone. I don't know. Just give me the bone. I know, adult chicken nuggets, whatever. I don't know. They're good and I like them.
Yeah. What was it? I forget who said it here on the show, but they brought up a really good point that you can't call a boneless wing a wing because wings are dark meat.
Semantics. I like what I like. Give me the boneless wing.
What's your favorite wing sauce?
Honey barbecue.
It's a good one. I'm currently a huge fan of Wingstop. I think within the past year, I've actually switched what my favorite wings were. I used to say barbecue wings from Quaker Steak, which I still love their barbecue sauce, but the wings themselves, I don't know. I don't know if they've changed or just my preferences kind of have shifted, because I went to one back in June and I don't know, the wings were okay, but it didn't hit the same spot. But then I got some Wingstop the next weekend and that was it. I'm this is my kind of wing now. And they're Hawaiian. Oh, it's so good.
I'll have to give them a shot.
All right. Question number 5, bacon or sausage?
Oh, a bit cannibalistic here, but give me bacon. There is, I don't know. I think I'm too precise with how I like the sausage to be. So I feel like there's a little bit more room for error with bacon. Even if it's undercooked or overcooked or whatever, I can still find parts of bacon that I'm okay, this is doable. So yeah, but sausage, if the whole thing is not cooked how I like it, then it's I can't have any of it, or I don't want any of it. So give me the bacon, man. Eating my cousins, but is what it is. What's
your sausage preference? How does it have to?
So I like the breakfast sausage links, the little ones, not the big girthy ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So give me the little sausage gimmicks. And I really like them on a bagel to make a little sandwich. But they're also good with waffles. But yeah, if I'm having sausage, I kind of need some kind of carb right next to it to kind of just soak up the sausage grease that's going to sit in my belly. So I don't feel that way with bacon.
Do you have a preference with the bacon of whether it's crispy or not?
I like it medium. I don't want it, definitely don't want it too chewy, too fatty, but I don't want to crumble when I take a bite either. So probably somewhere right in the middle.
All right. And question number 6 that I tailor around my guest: who the hell is going to book Gummy Boar versus the production?
Well, I've got an opportunity coming up that hasn't been announced yet as of recording, but should be announced here during the week by the time this comes out. But I'm going to be making my debut in Enjoy Wrestling alongside Erica Lee and a tag team partner, and we're going to have a Go Fashion Trios match. So now that we are in Enjoy, and if I get the nod to come back, I'm hoping that match with the production takes place, because it's money on the table. Man, yeah, want it to happen. Really want it to happen. I love what Derek and Ziggy do. Absolutely love the chemistry that they have and how they play off each other, how they complement each other. But I say the same for me and Erica, the big gal. So yeah, I think it'd be a money match. I think it's something we could definitely run across a few different territories and make some money. And that's the main thing, man. Is just look, bring Gummy Boar in and let us make money for your town. Yeah. We'll be your most over baby faces by the end of the night. The merch sales will reflect that 100%. But we also put butts in seats, man. So yeah, somebody needs to go ahead and book the match, and I'm hoping it's Enjoy. I hope they get the first crack at it.
Can the ring hold Ziggy and Erica at the same time? That's a lot of force right there.
Yeah, it's a lot of force. It's a lot of personality. It's a lot of talent, a lot of superstar aura in the ring at one time. But yeah, I'd love to see them go at it, and then get to go at it with Derek, and Ziggy too. Let me get a piece of Ziggy. She's got a few tricks up her sleeve that I will not fall for. So yeah, let's do it. Let's run it.
Let's get the Boar a shot at the Intense title while we're at it.
Whew, Intense champ. That's is that Derek?
Yep.
Or is that okay? Yeah. Let me come in and work Derek and see what we can do. I got a rule: no sharps. No sharps. I got to get I got a real job on Monday. I got to go to. No sharps for me, brother. But you want plunder? I'm down for some plunder. I can do some plundering. But yeah, let's get the tag match in the ring first and go from there.
All right, man. That wraps everything up. Any final thoughts or last minute plugs before we go?
Just March 4th for Enjoy, as I mentioned. Also March 18th down at Hampton High in Hampton, Virginia. I'm taking on Logan Easton LaRue for the VCW Heavyweight Championship. That's a big time match. And we are doing great numbers on the pre-sale, if I do say so myself. Toot toot. But yeah, that's all I got coming up immediately in the next couple weeks. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BoarIsWar. And you can also just keep supporting this podcast. I'd like to give a shout out to the soon to be named network as well, and all the podcasts over there. And I think that does it for me.
And of course, you can find myself at jsummers330 on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Hive. Much like you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, and Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose to desire, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com. And like I said earlier in this show, please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listen to this fine podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, or Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com. And all of those links can be found through the Linktree link in the podcast notes. Check out our podcast friends, such as Super Fantastic Podcast, The IndieCast, Sobros Network, Biff Radio, GameWorks Podcast, Powerbomb Jitsu, Power Driver Podcast, Fully Posable, Positively Pro Wrestling, Indie Wrestling Guide, If You Catch My Grift, At Odds with Wrestling, Marks with Mikes, Juggalo Rewind, X-Over, This Ends at Prom, and Porch Talk. And check out our other non-podcasting friends, such as The Mystery Men, Redline Radio, Mouse's Wrestling Adventures, VHS Party Tonight on Instagram, Danger Zone Video in Joliet, Tennessee, Heart of Gold, Toy Hio Toy Show, Time Capsule Toys, Smoke and Jay's Barbecue, JCP Designs, Midwest Territory, Southern Underground Pro, and the official graphic designer of Wrestling Cheers, Moy Boy Designs. That will do it for us here on Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And someone please book Gummy Boar versus the production. Later.
It's the Wrestling Cheers. Get up on your feet, brightening your day in the middle of the week. And you gotta love the show. Yeah, you know it holds a title for the best podcast talking wrestling in Ohio. Finishing a cold one, take a load off. We ain't all about the prohibition like Josh, so we cheers. And then we sit back. Other shows are in the trash, kinda like they Nick Stapp. Like the name is Matt Justice, wearing all the gold. Wrestling Cheers is coming to a close. The #1 podcast going in the game. And one day everybody's gonna know the name. It's the Wrestling Cheers. This is Platinum Max, signing off. Ohio, good night. The world, good night. We love you. We'll see you next week.